Good morning, children. In today's session, we shall be looking at another poem from our English Beehive textbook for Standard 9. The name of the poem is On Killing a Tree, which has been written by Jeev Patel. Jeev Patel is an Indian poet who was born on 18th August 1940. Besides being a poet, he is also a playwright, painter, as well as a practicing physician. He belongs to a group of writers who have subscribed themselves to the Green Movement, which is involved in an effort to protect the environment. His poems speak of deep concerns for nature and expose man's cruelty to it. Now let's look at the poem in detail. We shall be going stanza-wise. So stanza 1. On killing a tree. It takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of the knife will do it. It has grown, slowly consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide sprouting leaves. In these lines of the poem, the poet says that killing a tree is a long process and it consumes a lot of time. A simple jab of the knife will not be adequate to destroy a full-grown tree, and hence you may try to destroy it, cut it. However, the wounds inflicted on it by a knife or an axe cannot cause its death. The tree rises out of the earth and feeds upon its crust. As it grows through the years, it absorbs sunlight, air, and water. And the last two lines, the poet says that the bark of the tree is discolored just like the skin of a patient who is suffering from leprosy. In spite of that, still new leaves and branches sprout from it as it continues growing. Stanza 2. So hack can chop, but this alone won't do it. Not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal, and from close to the ground will rise curl green twigs, miniature boughs, which if unchecked will expand again to former size. In the second stanza, the poet is addressing a person who is cutting the tree. He says that merely hacking and chopping its branches will not kill the tree. The powerful blows will create scars and give pain to the tree, but will not end its life. The injured trunk with the sap oozing from the wounded bark will heal with time. Even if the trunk is hacked, the stump will sprout again and new branches and leaves will start growing. And finally, the poet warns man that if this is not checked, it will grow into a big tree back to its former size once again. Stanza 3. No, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, tied, and pulled out, snapped out, or pulled out entirely, out from the earth cave, and the strength of the tree exposed. The source, white and wet, the most sensitive, hidden for years inside the earth. In this stanza, the poet describes the actual process of killing a tree. He says that the hacking and chopping will not destroy the tree. It is the roots that need to be attacked. The root is held tightly and supported by nourishing earth. This root has to be pulled out from the earth. It has to be uprooted. And here he suggests the technique of pulling the tree and destroying its roots. He says that tie the tree with a rope and pull it out of the hollow of the earth fully and completely. Once the root is pulled out of the earth, we are introduced to the strongest part of the tree. It is from here that the tree originates. It is moist and white because the roots have been protected by Mother Earth, who has taken care of it. Knowing that this is the most sensitive part of the tree. So the poet says that the best way to destroy the tree is to remove its roots from the earth, because the real strength of the tree lies in its roots. Stanza 4. Then the matter of scorching and choking, in sun and air, browning, hardening, twisting, withering, and then it is done. The final stanza describes the ultimate destruction of the tree. The scorching heat of the sun and exposure to air smother the root. However, it doesn't die then. The root is exposed. First it becomes brown in color. The soft white wood hardens. The root is twisted and then it withers. The softness and its tenderness is replaced by hardness. The unfortunate thing then crumbles and withers away to nothingness. And then we can say that the destruction is complete. Now children, let's look at the literary devices that we can find in this poem. Now, if you look into this poem in detail, you find that there is no rhyme scheme in this poem. So we can say that the poem is written in free verse. Not only that, the length of the lines varies in each stanza. Some of the lines are as short as just a word. Not only the lines, but even the stanzas are of unequal length. Now let's see the figures of speech. First one is alliteration. We know that alliteration is that figure of speech where the initial consonant sound is repeated for poetic effect. Here are the examples. In stanza 1, it takes much time to kill a tree. Stir sound is repeated. In stanza 2, the bleeding bark will heal. Burr sound is repeated. And in stanza 3, the source white and wet, were sound is repeated. The next figure of speech is metaphor, which is a comparison between two unlike things without the use of words like or as. The first example can be found in stanza 1, and out of its leprous hide. Here, the uneven discolored bark of a tree is compared to the discolored skin of a person suffering from leprosy. In stanza 2, we have another example, the bleeding bark will heal. Here, the poet compares the sap oozing out of the bark of a hacked tree trunk to the blood of a human being or a living creature. In both these examples, we find that the poet has not used the words like or as, which are the words usually used for comparison, and hence they are examples of metaphor. The next figure of speech is enjambment. In this figure of speech, one line of the poem rolls onto the next line without any punctuation mark like comma or full stop. Here are some of the examples. In stanza 1, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, water. Here the first line flows into the second line and reaches the third line where there is a punctuation mark. In stanza 2, so hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. Not so much pain will do it. Here the first line moves to the second line and the second line moves to the third line and concludes there. In the same stanza, we have miniature boughs which if unchecked will expand again to former size. Here too the first two lines roll on to the third line and hence these are some of the examples of enjambment. The next figure of speech is repetition, where a word or a group of words have been repeated for poetic effect. In these lines, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, tied and pulled out, snapped out or pulled out entirely out from the earth cave. Over here we find that the word out and the phrase pulled out have been repeated several times to emphasize the effort involved in uprooting the tree and exposing its roots. In a nutshell, we can say that the poem on killing a tree presents the sturdiness of a fully grown tree, strengthened by nourishment from the earth, the sun, and the air. It depicts the survival instinct of a strong tree which refuses to die even when its branches and its trunk have been chopped off. The real strength and vitality of a tree lies in its deep roots. It's only when these roots wither that the tree loses its life. The message that we get from this poem is that trees are living beings just like any other form of life. They have strong survival instincts and can withstand any type of assault, trauma or crisis. It is not so easy to kill them for they have a never say die attitude to life. These values we too need to imbibe in our life. Just like the trees, we need to fight and never give up at times of crisis. Dear children, I hope that you have been able to understand the poem, follow the various literary devices used in it, as well as able to grasp the message as conveyed by the poet. Thank you all for watching this video. Hope to see you soon in my next session.